Broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Here's your host, Andrew Romanella.
Okay? Like, just get the hell out of here. Nobody cares what you think if you're not a Mets fan.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show, broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm your host, Andrew Romanella, and we got you for the next 20 or 25 minutes as we're getting you ready for Super Bowl 60 on Sunday. The Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. Twitter, X, Instagram, The Rome Show 1. That's The Rome Show. Then the number 1. Go ahead and hit that follow button for me on the social media sites. YouTube.com/The Romanellas. That's YouTube.com/The Romanellas. Head over there. Hit subscribe, like, comment, do the dance. Facebook.com/The Rome Show. We previously recorded this episode. By previously recorded, I say 20 minutes before this episode aired. But nonetheless, we wanted to get on the air today on a Friday because the Super Bowl is happening on Sunday. Today is the start officially of the Milan Cortina Olympics. USA women's hockey, big victory last night against Czechia to get us rolling. And at 1:40 today, the opening ceremonies will officially start the Olympics from February 6th today until February 22nd. So much going on. Also, the NFL gave out their end of the year awards yesterday. So it could possibly be the most jam-packed Friday we've had in a really long time, and we are slightly shortened because of baseball practice today, so we got to get right to it. Let's start with the Super Bowl, our preview, and our predictions. Yesterday, if you missed it, the Rome Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast, we discussed Drake May versus Sam Darnold and the importance of the QB battle. We also discussed Mike Vrabel versus Mike McDonald and which head coach might have the head coaching advantage. I don't want to spoiler alert the Rome Show podcast episode that you're about to go watch or listen to, excuse me. You can watch it on youtube.com/The Romanellas as a rerun. But the bottom line in that conversation was the totality of work by Drake May over the course of the entire season is a better body of work, statistically speaking, and potentially on some days, play speaking, than Sam Darnold. However, when you look at the postseason, Sam Darnold, significantly better. Now, that's a 2-game and a 3-game sample size, significantly smaller than a 17-game sample size. And that's not to say Darnold did not have a great year. He doesn't do what he did with Seattle after coming off what he did with Minnesota if some of this isn't starting to be actually who Sam Darnold is. I think it's hard when you get a retread quarterback like this to believe that he is this good. You start thinking about the Jets, you start thinking about the Panthers, you don't start thinking about the Vikings. And sometimes when you're watching the Seahawks, you're still questioning, is it real or is it not? And part of that was because heading into this season, whether he was the quarterback of the Vikings again, or he was the quarterback of the Seahawks, or he went somewhere else, because of the way it ended last year in Minnesota, it did not give you belief in Sam Darnold to bring the Seattle Seahawks to the postseason. And then, more importantly, simply put, just win the big game. Felt increasingly like as Sam Darnold's career did get better, he still was not proving that most important game, he needed to have his best game. Well, in the 2 postseason games this year, he has done just that. So when you head into the Super Bowl, you look at QB versus QB, and on one side of the fence, if you're Sam Darnold, you tell yourself one thing: do not turn this football over. Because last night, Jackson Smith and Jigba got voted the offensive player of the year in the league. And the reason for that is he had nearly 1,800 receiving yards and 119 receptions, which is astronomically unbelievable numbers. The guy is almost unguardable, okay? When you have a weapon like that, it's only going to make everybody else around you better. Your run game's better, your tight end plays better, your slot receiver play is better. Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN, as people call him, does that for this Seahawks team. That offense, for the most part, has been steady the entire year. There are anomalies everywhere. But if we've played 21 weeks of football in Seattle, you would feel pretty confident about what you're going to see from that offense. 25 points, 30 points. Okay running game, really good passing game. Don't turn the football over. That defense is so good they could beat anyone. On the flip side for New England, it has not been smooth sailing in the postseason, especially from the standpoint of their offensive play. In their victory against the Broncos, they only scored 10 points. In their victory against the Titans, they scored 28. And in their victory against the Chargers, they scored 16. My quick math tells me that is 54 points over the course of their last 3 games, good for an average of 18 points per game. Here's why that's a really tough place to be. Because now when you get to this Super Bowl matchup and you get beyond the offensive weapons on each side, you got a good quarterback and a good number 1 wide receiver on each side. We just mentioned Seattle. In New England, that add-on to Drake May would be Stephon Diggs. Really elite running back in New England, though rookie status, combo 2-headed status, and then a solid running back in Seattle. All of that seems comparable, okay? Which is why I believe this is going to be a really good football game. But the best factor for both of these teams is their defense. Listen to some of these numbers, because when I look at this defensive matchup between the Hawks and the Pats, I think about space. I know that might sound weird at first, but let me explain, okay? When I'm playing hockey, I feel like a game is flowing, or I got chance, or there's space to make plays, to make passes, to find open space, to receive a pass, to take a shot, to move around the rink. When there is space, it's generally because you're playing a pretty poor defensive team that does not know how to match up against their player or simply just cover the defensive zone. Well, when I think about these two defenses playing football, I don't believe there's any space on the field. Whether it's a DB checking up on a wide receiver or it's a linebacker hitting the hole to make sure they stop this run for as little yards as possible, whether it's the push off the defensive line, the closing gap of the safety, those slants that feel like they're always collecting third downs, not against these teams. These two defenses suffocate offenses. They change looks, they disguise what their actual defensive coverage is, and they make it almost impossible to feel like you can create space to make big plays happen. And the team that can find a way to break through or just bend one of these defenses, they're not going to break, but bend one, because when you look at the numbers, they're really good. Let's start with the Hawks. 7th in the postseason in yards per game at 357.5. They've only had 3 sacks as a defensive line, probably their worst statistic I'm going to mention right now. 5th in the postseason in takeovers, 6th in penalties, And number 3, there's that don't break. Number 3 in points per game. They're only giving up 18.5 points per game. If you remember what I just said earlier about the New England Patriots offense, they're averaging 18 points per game during the postseason. So your average versus your average on offense and defense results in a 1.5 point game. Tell you how close it's going to be. Well, the Patriots, though, the fact of the matter is, on paper, they have the defensive advantage right now. Okay? Right now. Because in a way, in actually a lot of way, it does not matter what you did in the regular season. It only matters what you're doing in the postseason. And in the postseason, the Pats are number 1 in yards per game, number 1 in sacks, number 1 in takeovers, number 2 in in penalties, and number 1 in points. Listen to some of these numbers. They've only given up 209.7 yards per game through their first 3 contests. They've amassed 12 sacks as a defensive line, 8 takeaways, 8 in 3 postseason games, and number 1 in points per game given up in the postseason at 8.7. That is to go to my point earlier, that is a suffocating style of defense. They're going to have their hands full, though, however, because in 2 football games against the 49ers and the Rams, the Seattle Seahawks scored a combined 72 points for a 2-game average of 36 points per game. So don't you see why this is going to be so much fun over the weekend? Why Sunday is an absolutely
show watching
moment for whoever the hell you are, okay? And by the way, because I know the Super Bowl becomes about the commercials and what's the coin toss going to be, what color Gatorade's going to be dumped on his head later, all of those Bad Bunny's halftime performance, all of those non-football related things, right? A lot of that is what the Super Bowl becomes. And there's always the possibility of a crap game. But I think looking at both of these teams, the totality of their season, looking at both of these teams on paper, looking at both of these teams coaching staff-wise, do not simply just go to the Super Bowl party you're headed to, or do not just turn on the television for the commercials and Bad Bunny, because I do believe this is going to be an exceptional football game on both sides of the ball. I think this is a come down to the last drive of the game type football contest. New York Football Giants, New England Patriots 07 type stuff. Eli Manning to whoever the hell that was, Plaxico Burress, I think that was 2011, regardless, in the end zone. That type of moment, kicking a field goal to win it or lose it as time expires. These two teams are so tight in terms of the coachability and the defense, and when the offenses are going well, because that's the thing I want to note. You know, we're going to talk a lot about quarterback play, right? That's the National Football League. We're going to talk a lot about the head coaching situation. Both these dudes have been hired within the last 2 years or less. We're going to talk a lot about their defenses, because outside the quarterback and the coach, which everyone believes are the 2 most important things in the National Football League, you better be able to play defense. And you're going to break all this stuff down, and it could be a crapshoot. But when you're doing that with this game, it's almost impossible to not see this is going to be a really good football game. The Seattle Seahawks are favored by 4.5 in this contest. The line opened at 3.5. So the public is really starting to put their money on the Seattle Seahawks, which has now pushed them to 4.5. That's a big number. Okay, that's a big number. All right. And I'll give you my thoughts here in a second. I just wanted to touch on some of the fun stuff for this jobber. Obviously, a lot of bananas get put down on the Super Bowl, and rightfully so. It's arguably the best day of the entire year. So many things you can put your fruits on, so many bushels to be had, and some of the most popular ones are going to be heads or tails on the coin toss. What's the first song that Bad Bunny plays coming out halftime when his show starts? How long's the anthem going to be? What color Gatorade is going to be dumped on the head coach that wins? Okay. All of these side banana peels are what make the Super Bowl fun. Prop bets in the real world of gambling is what they are called. And the prop bets on the Super Bowl are off the charts. But every year, if you've been an avid Rome Show listener, you know this. Rome Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast. If you are trying to fact check, every year, I'll pick the anthem, I'll pick the Gatorade color, and I will pick heads or tails. Often, I do choose what the first song's going to be at halftime, and I know Bad Bunny songs, but by the nature of, like, if it played, I could be like, oh, this is a Bad Bunny song. I don't know Bad Bunny songs, though, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm not putting on a Bad Bunny album in my car and vibing on my way to work to the Bad Bunny album. However, I absolutely understand why the National Football League would choose a star like Bad Bunny in an era when all of these pro leagues are trying to build their international brand, in a time when the National Football League has decided, hey, we are going to expand our international slate so we can make sure we keep growing this game overseas. So you go from, I think, 6 international games this year to 9 international games next year. They're going to like 1 or 2 countries they've never been before. This push to grow the game at an international level is at the top of the list for these pro sports leagues right now, led by what the National Basketball Association has been able to do, I would say, over the course of the last 25 to 30 years. It truly started with Kobe Bryant in China. Okay, Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand really started to pump overseas. But at least in my lifetime, since 1990, I can truly remember Kobe Bryant and his team being one of the first, if not the first, superstar athlete, NBA guy specifically, to go overseas and see the importance of going overseas and growing both the Kobe brand, but also growing the game of basketball. Listen to Carmelo Anthony, former New York Knickerbocker, Denver Nugget, and some others. Carmelo Anthony spoke the other day on the radio about that, about the point of what we just mentioned and how, right? It's like, damn. And when you hear guys talk about the importance of expanding your portfolio, expanding the game to places that the game has never been before, you're talking about a lot of money. Melo was talking about how crazy it was to learn how much these people loved him or the game or whatever. Lucrative if you can expand your game overseas. And the National Football League, who has primarily been considered, it is American football, an American sport, is really starting to push its boundaries beyond the 50 states of the United States of America, and not just overseas, but with decisions like this for the halftime show. So I got no idea. Got no idea what Bad Bunny's preparing for at halftime. I just do know I think it's going to be enjoyable. So where are we going from here, Andrew? How do we finish? Okay, because we know that we are Go watch it. The Super Bowl on Sunday. So let's turn the music on. Let's finish this show and let's give you our picks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. Okay. We have, as I mentioned before, we have the -4.5 now as the line for the Seattle Seahawks. Okay. Total 45.5. And I got to be honest with you, I want to believe this game is going under. I have been hammering unders for a long time now in the 2025-2026 football season, and it has done me wonders. However, because of the difficulties of this football game, the amount of press leading up to it, the obligations you have on the Super Bowl week comparative to a regular week, the fact that the halftime is nearly an hour comparative to 15 or 20 minutes. You put all those factors into the mixing bowl, you mix them around to get your thought process, and you say to yourself, I could actually see this being a high-scoring game. Because as we've talked about all day and all months leading up to this moment, both of these teams have elite defenses, but they also have the opportunity to have elite offenses as well. And I think that is the thing that could show up with the difference in this. It's the Super Bowl. Crazy things have happened. We've all seen it. So I'm actually going to take the over on the 45.5. Once this number got pushed to beyond 3.5 in favor of the Patriots, I'm taking the Pats at +4.5. I just think they are too good coaching and defense to allow this game to be beyond like a field goal. I got the anthem at 2 minutes and 4 seconds. Okay. Based on my research, I'm going to go with orange Gatorade as the color after the game. I want heads as the coin toss because I looked up stats yesterday. 31 times tails has come out on the Super Bowl coin toss. 28 heads has come out. So I am taking the odds there that we are getting closer to 50-50 again with heads as the coin toss. I would also like to add in here Sam Darnold under 250 yards passing. Okay. I don't think it's going to be way under, but I think it's going to be under 250 yards passing. A Drake May anytime touchdown. You want to get more specific? I think it's going to be a Drake May rushing touchdown. But I am hammering. If I was to choose, right, give you something here. Andrew, you just mentioned a lot right there. There was a lot of you just mentioned. Okay, let's break it down. Give me the Pats at +4.5. Give me a Drake May anytime touchdown, and give me Sam Darnold under 250 throwing yards. If I could take three that I feel like I want in on, I'm taking those three. And then from the standpoint of the non-football related activity, hammerheads, people, hammerheads, not the shark, the possible opportunity for you to win on Sunday. I want to finish this show by saying, show watching. The Olympic ceremonies start at 1:40 today. And if you are not locked in to Milan Cortina or whatever the hell you call this thing, you're crazy. Because this is the one chance for everyone to be in port our country in a way that doesn't feel political, in a way that doesn't feel like I have to pretend. If you're listening to this show, you definitely like sports. All right. And most of us don't get a chance to watch a lot of the sports that happen in the Olympics because they're not one of the quote unquote major sports. And these athletes are unbelievable athletes, and these sports are awesome sports. So do not forget about the Olympics this weekend, people. Okay. We got women's ice hockey. Like I mentioned, our women's team got kicked off with a big win over Czechia. I got figure skating and I got curling on my docket for Saturday and Sunday when I am not watching the Super Bowl. So hopefully you tune on and scream USA, USA, and support our athletes. I'm Andrew Romanella. Thank you for supporting me on the Rome Show daily. I'll be back tomorrow. No, I won't. It's Saturday. See y'all on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Hope Electric One. Andrew Romanella. Peace.
Thank you for listening.